We're gonna be in pain after this. I know you brought up the pepper challenge. Hot ones?
Hot ones,
yeah. Yeah, you brought up hot ones. This is gonna be like hot ones, but like for meat sweats.
Yeah.
You know, we're gonna start sweating pork fat here in a second, brisket fat.
What's going on, OpeCast? It's Braden, and today I have a very special guest. I have Chef Gerard Craft, James Beard winner, owner of Niche Food Group, and really one of the leaders in the culinary world. And I feel like I could go on and on. I mean, from all the different restaurants you own. Before we get into this new concept, we're at Expat. I want to take things back, but while we do that, let's have some food.
All right.
What do we have in front of us?
All right, so we have our mead smoked chicken with barbecue sauce that's made kind of with awaze spices and some pickled vegetables on it. We have mastacholi, and this is a vegetarian mastacholi made with mushrooms. We have our chopped pork, and that pork is made with kind of Vietnamese flavors. We call the sauce hogwash, and so that's really taken from Mike and Amy Mills at 17th Street Barbecue. I really took their recipe, but then, you know, put it through what if I was trying to make this recipe in Vietnam. So it's got like, you know, fish sauce, palm vinegar, star anise, and like, you know, all these different spices. So, you know, it's got the same kind of like Carolina style vinegar barbecue sauce that their hogwash has, but it's its own thing now.
The way you can remember every single ingredient and what things are called, where they're from, I mean, that's impressive. Obviously, it's your restaurant, it's your team, but man, that's impressive.
Well, Sam Naraki and our team here are the ones making this every day. I still need, you know, a recipe book when I'm making it. Yeah. So Sam and I did a lot of the testing throughout this whole process. We would just kind of go back and forth on a lot of these things. When she brought up the mastacholi, it was because one of our team members had talked a lot about barbecue spaghetti. It was a big thing in a lot of barbecue joints, especially down in like Memphis and stuff like that. And so this is kind of like the homage. This is, you know, both the homage to Italy and to Southern barbecue spaghetti. So why don't we give that a shot? It's healthy because it's vegetarian.
See, there are vegetarian options here. Now, you grew up in DC.
Yeah.
You eventually made your way here to St. Louis. Let's talk about growing up in DC.
Sure. So I grew up in Washington, D.C. You know, I was, you know, grew up playing a lot of sports and stuff, and until I got to the age where getting in trouble seemed a lot more fun, and so I did that pretty well. You know, doing a lot of graffiti, as we have in the backdrop. First time picking up a can since like I was 16 years old.
Did it feel weird? I mean, it looks good.
It was fun, you know. It was funny because I did it at night, like stress relief, and I was like, "It's really fun. I can get back into this."
When you told me that, I thought you were joking. I was like, "For real?" You're like, "Yeah," and then here I have learned a little bit more. I mean, it's like with Paint Louis. Who knows? Maybe one day you'll be like, "All right, guys, I'm taking Labor Day weekend off. I'm gonna actually go down there."
I need a lot of practice to get back there, but you know,
especially a 50-foot flood wall.
So when I was 16, I was sent to sort of a reform school in northern Idaho for 2.5 years. And while I was there, I did kind of work apprenticeships with a photographer out there. And so I had always been into photography, and so this was my first chance doing it kind of professionally, and or at least learning how to do it professionally with snowboarders and skiers and wakeboarders and stuff like that. And so I think that's where I kind of thought my life was going, was the photography world, whether it would be in action or in like National Geographic or something creative. Like that. Yeah, the creative world has always been the world that's got me interested. And it's funny because when I started cooking, I dropped out of school, and and I got a job kind of washing cars in the morning and dishes at night. And at the pool hall that I was washing dishes at, they would let me cook, and made me a cook. And I really fell in love with like the camaraderie of the kitchen, not really like the food yet. I fell in love with like being on a pirate ship, with all these people and
like messing up. Would you like some of that?
Oh yeah, hit me up.
We got a lot to eat today, so.
I was a pretty picky eater actually growing up, and I ate a lot of. I had a Brazilian nanny, and it was like my second mom. Her name's Dia, and so like Brazilian food was the one food I would eat like all the time. Especially these puffed rolls, which we have on our menu here, called pão de queijo. It's like just cheese bread, Brazilian cheese bread, and feijoada. It's kind of like black beans and rice stewed with all different types of salted meats and stuff like that. So like that was my comfort food. But outside of that, like I ate like nothing until I went to reform school, and that's where I think I had the worst food in the world.
Yeah.
And then after that, everything tasted good.
Like never again.
Everything tasted so good. Like everything that was like actually good and not like grade D meat or whatever we were eating at that place, like was just, I was like, I want to eat everything after that.
What were you using as a videographer for snowboarders? Like you're also snowboarding, you're trying to capture the person, is that right?
So I was all still photography.
Gotcha.
I had just gotten into, still photography. We go into like the backcountry, like hike out somewhere, build a massive jump. I would sit kind of under the jump or whatever, and take pictures of people out there, or like sit under a cliff or whatever while people are kind of going off the cliff, which is kind of crazy because sometimes you had to jump off the same cliff with a backpack or whatever just to get a backpack with all your camera gear. And then you would get down there and like set it up, and it's not waterproof gear, right? You're like
the work that went into it before drones were just an everyday thing.
Yeah, and so I did just start when digital photography really started like picking up a little bit. When you're starting to get like higher end camcorders and stuff, I started to get into video and went out to LA and kind of worked on some independent movies to try and like learn videography and stuff like that, and was hoping to kind of take that in there, but cooking soon just kind of took over my life, and to the point of like I fell in love with the kitchen, not the food. And it wasn't until I went and worked in France for a summer. I did this kind of like work study thing at the Ritz in Paris, and while I was out there, I saw these kind of avant-garde chefs that were doing really wild stuff at the time, and like mixing flavors that like I never would have thought of, or mixing like savory techniques in desserts and dessert techniques in savory. And all of a sudden I saw I could break all the rules, right?
Yeah.
You're like, oh, you can do fun things. Once you know like the technique, then you can like put whatever spin on it, you can add whatever flavors to it, and I was sold on cooking after that. I was like, that's when like that creative side came in. And again, what we're doing here at Expat is like, we got, technique, but then we're gonna break all the rules with all the flavors.
So, St. Louis, how did you end up here?
I had been living in LA and moved back to Salt Lake City. I was at a really great place in Salt Lake. I was working with awesome people, but I knew I kind of wanted to do my own thing. And I didn't think that I wanted to do it in Salt Lake for a number of reasons, although I love Salt Lake City. And so I have a weird habit of looking at real estate online all the time in different cities and within my own city. And I had started reading a little bit about St. Louis, and Kevin Nashin had just bought Sydney Street Cafe, and Larry Forgione had just opened American Place, and I think there was something in like Bon Appetit even that kind of sparked my eye. And so I started kind of looking up real estate and found a wine bar for sale for really cheap. And I was like, oh man, that could be cool. And I don't know why. I mean, I flew there literally on like New Year's Day, 2005. And it was like dirt floors. There was no wine bar. It was like a hole in the ground where I think they may wanted it to be a wine bar one day. No electricity. And I was like, I'll take it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know anybody here.
Yeah.
I'd never been here. I was just like, let's go.
Okay.
And maybe it's because, like, you know, after when I was 16, you know, getting shipped off to Idaho and then moving to Salt Lake City and then for college and then going to LA and I went to work in New Jersey at one point. Like, kind of just been, I've never really had like a place, you know, since I was 16. And so I think that's maybe why it was so easy for me to be like, yeah, I'm just gonna pick up and move to this new town and do this new thing. And like, didn't seem crazy at all in my mind, just seemed so natural. And everybody else was like, what are you talking about? Yeah. St. Louis? Turns out we knew actually lots of people. We had a lot of like family connections here and stuff like that. And a lot of people ended up helping us out. Kevin Nashin right there became like my best friend in town. And
now look at you, like, now they come to St. Louis and they're like, oh, well, we got to stay at least like 7-8 days to go all to different restaurants.
St. Louis has been, it was the right choice. It was a crazy choice, but it was the right choice. I'm gonna get a wing.
Well, we're here at Expat, and what do we have in front of us? Because I think we need to go downstairs after this and eat a little bit more.
So these are the jerk chicken wings right here.
Okay.
These have been kind of like the breakout star of the menu. I mean, I love chicken wings, don't get me wrong, but I didn't expect these to blow up quite the way they have, and people are freaking out about these. The jerk sauce, and then like a hot sauce right next to it. And that hot sauce kind of packs a little heat.
Delicious. The glaze on it. Well, let's go downstairs. Let's learn a little bit more about Expat, eat some more food, and then... So let's talk about Expat BBQ. For those who do not know what it is, what is it?
So Expat BBQ is American barbecue from the perspective of somebody living overseas, right? So, you know, we have a smoked sweet potato that's, you know, twice smoked, but it's glazed in a sherry vinegar barbecue sauce. So the idea is when you're overseas and you want to cook that thing from home, you know, whether it's your ribs or your brisket, and you go to the store to make your recipe, inevitably you have to kind of make those substitutions. You got to say, okay, well, I know this is sweet, this spice to this recipe, and you make all those swaps. But what you get in the end is something that's familiar, but something that's also kind of very distinctly of that place. I think one of the biggest misconceptions, you know, when you tell people about this concept, about what it's going to be, is that I think a lot of people think that it's going to be like we're serving Korean barbecue or something. Like, we're not trying to do Korean barbecue. I don't know enough about Korean barbecue to do that. But, you know, if I wanted to make brisket in Korea, what kind of ingredients would I use? You know, would I use gochugaru or something, you know, for the spices? And so it's just that kind of mindset. And so, you know, we have ribs that are really based off of a bourbon barbecue recipe. You know, but this was kind of like if we were in China. And so we have like Baijiu whiskey. We have like a Chinese 5-spice instead of chili powder. And so, you know, these little swaps that you're kind of making along the way still give you kind of a sweet and sticky rib. Instead of molasses, we use fermented black bean paste in there, because that's also that kind of like rich, thick item to make that replacement. And so you get something entirely different. Again, since we were just talking about this dish, I'll cut off a couple ribs. This is that Baijiu whiskey sauce.
You guys make everything in-house?
Yes, everything's made right here. Everything's made right here, smoked right outside.
That is a nice thing about coming to the City Foundry nowadays, is like literally Like I came here for coffee the other morning and I'm just smelling barbecue, so it's working.
Nice. All right, and so we also have some kind of chili crisp on top, just the crispy part, just for a little texture. So you can try kind of without the sauce and with the sauce.
I've never tasted ribs like this. Wow.
It's not like any kind of Chinese ribs that you would get, to that misconception. It's still kind of a sticky St. Louis style ribs. You're gonna have to, clean your fingers off really well after, but.
You feel the pressure, like it has to be St. Louis style ribs.
I think it just made sense. St. Louis style ribs is just the cut, right? Mm-hmm. But it was invented here, and the cut was invented here in St. Louis, right? So just kind of made sense to do it. And I like them, right? They're
delicious.
They're, fattier. They're not quite as precious as baby back ribs, but I kind of like that, right? A little more collagen in it, and a little more gritty, like St. Louis.
This whole place, 16,000 square feet, 250 people can come in here. You have about 80 employees. So this wasn't something you thought of in just a year. How much time did it take you to, from day one of, hey, we're gonna have Expat here, maybe even going back to when you first thought of the concept?
Yeah, so earlier niche days, we looked at opening a barbecue restaurant downtown. We were getting big in distilling, just hobby-wise.
Okay.
And so a space came up, we were like, this would be really cool to do kind of distillery and barbecue, and started making this barbecue menu. And if you look at Niche's flavors over the years, like there have been a lot of influences from like travels to Japan and Mexico and stuff like that involved. And so when we were originally looking at that concept, this was over a decade ago. And so we were just kind of playing around with that idea of smoking meats, with these different flavors. And right about then, there was kind of a barbecue boom.
Yep.
And we were just like I think like we were literally about to seal the deal on this, and like 5 places announced. We decided, hey, we're not gonna try and jump in on this. So it kind of went in the vault. And so when this came up, this space, we started thinking about it. We started to kind of think of different ideas, and then just started building on that idea of globally influenced barbecue. And I always love the idea of food migration, right? Again, Italian American food coming to America, right? It's like, Italians come to America and they say, what do I have to cook with? Detroit style pizza, a Sicilian that wants to make, sfincione, the kind of focaccia style pizza, but did it in an automaker's pan and with brick cheese, and it changed the whole dimension of that pizza, right? And it became distinctly Detroit style pizza. But that really is an Italian dish. And so, same thing here, but the reverse, where, America's going abroad. And I think you're actually, in this world, you're just starting to see maybe overseas, America actually having an influence on the food scene abroad, where it's always kind of been the opposite. Now you're going into Italy and, seeing people do spins on burgers, and, people have barbecue teams in Bologna, and, so I think you're starting to see American food kind of take that movement in the other way.
What do we have next up here?
All right,
we have a whole bunch of food in front of us. So
you want to shoot some of this, or?
I was gonna say, one thing that makes it tough to talk to you is because you saw me grab the second rib, and I'm like, oh man, I'm doing an interview right now, and I'm out here wanting to eat more. Oh yeah, let's talk about the cheese bread.
So, when the thought came up of biscuits and Cinder House was closed, we thought, the pain queijo, this childhood dish of mine, felt so at home in this, and then pairing it with some honey butter just felt really, really right. And
this is what my wife and I would go to Cinder House for.
And this was at the original niche, and it's just kind of, again, I grew up with these. I love these. I'd eat them fresh out of the oven when I was a kid, and it's just like crack to me.
This is so good.
This isn't a double dip, I promise. This is a broken piece.
My wife and I will be that person that, we're gonna come in here, we're gonna get some barbecue, but there may be days where we go watch a movie and then we're gonna come here and grab this.
Yeah, I mean, cheese biscuits made with tapioca starch. It's just right. It's just right. And with honey butter.
It's like you said, it's crack.
Yeah, at one point we did it with sorghum butter at Niche, and so I was like, honey butter. Like, it's so barbecue, you know what I mean?
Now let's talk about the beer selection as, we rearrange some food, because I've never seen this before in my life. This is a cool can.
So we wanted to, again, we talked earlier just about how, Niche Food Group is just a monster team, and, we're doing so much, but we're doing so much with great people. So from the food here, working hand in hand with Samantha Naraki, our executive chef, who came up from Nashville just to open this with us, to our beverage program with Melinda Cooper and Josh Laney, who has been kind of helping to pick through all of these different beverages. And the one thing I said with the beverage is I really want to not just do all local beers. And we have some, local beers,
right.
but all of our bars have tons of local beers, but I really wanted, for the drinks to kind of reflect, where you're eating this in some way, shape, or form, right? And so, we got beer from Nicaragua, again, a Belgian beer reflecting a Tokyo style of beer, with a rice beer.
The thing I've noticed with you is it's every detail matters.
Yeah.
From the wallpaper, the decor, the menu, the tiger, things like every little detail matters.
So my brother's name is Tiger.
Okay.
And so one, with the travel, animals and stuff kind of really come big into travel. But when we started seeing tigers and some of the stuff we were doing, my brother, who was our first investor, one of my business partners who lives in London, name's Tiger. I was like, we got to kind of really highlight him and show him some love in this. In fact, when we got an elephant upstairs, he said, I'm still the mascot, right?
Yep.
Really quick, so some brisket is one of Sam's, I think one of the first things I tasted from Sam that
looks very tender. Tender, juicy.
Yeah. Yeah, you would not even need a knife. All right, and we got some of this kind of avocado salsa. So she's taking kind of spices from Mexico, and especially with Mexico's influence already on Southern barbecue, this was kind of such a natural fit. Just made this avocado salsa that I think's really fresh and nice with heavy brisket, because brisket is so rich. You have a few bites of brisket and you're like, oof.
So you're open Saturday and Sundays. This is gonna be open Saturday and Sundays for lunch?
Every day for lunch.
Every day for lunch.
At the Terrace Bar. Terrace Bar, we wanted to be kind of more fun, bar-oriented. Again, sandwiches, live music sometimes. We got roll-up doors. It's a little more loungy up there, so you can just hang out. You could sit down all day, just have a couple beers and work from home,
That was my plan.
Yeah.
Just to go up there. Because it's really cool in this area. It feels like a whole new city, which it is. I guess, City Foundry, but it's taking the city in from a view, an angle that you haven't seen before. Taking in a sunset on a rooftop like that just elevates the whole experience.
And it's covered, so even if it's raining out, it's super nice. There's fans, so even when it's warm, I mean, those fans crush.
So that's where you work from home? No, that's your office. That's your office upstairs.
It kind of is. I don't really have a desk, so I'm kind of always all over the place. So it's been the best office that I've had so far, for sure. We're going to be in pain after this. I know you brought up the, what's it called? The pepper challenge. Hot ones?
Hot ones,
yeah. Yeah, you brought up hot ones. This is going to be like hot ones, but for meat sweats.
Yeah.
We're going to start sweating pork fat here in a second, brisket fat.
When it comes to meat, how do you preserve that quality throughout the whole day? Because when it's right out the smoker, obviously it's very fresh, juicy. How do you preserve that?
So we have 2 shifts. That's why we don't do plates in the daytime. So we really want there to be 2 shifts. We want the kind of morning shift that's smoking just for sandwiches, and then we want the evening shift that's smoking for all the barbecue plates. Let's go check out upstairs.
I'm not gonna lie, man, it was hard getting up the steps.
I know, I'm very full, very full.
How does it feel to be up here off camera? We were talking about, we have this up bar there, we got a new skyscraper, new hotel, Alamo Draft House, this whole new city skyline, and you're a part of it. How does it feel to come here, experience it, but then also know that you're playing a big role in it?
Yeah, I think when we first got involved with the Foundry, when we helped curate the food hall down there, one of the biggest things for us is we know how important this location is in St. Louis. This is such a big connector for the Central West End, the Grove, and Midtown and downtown. And so we, felt some kind of like actual responsibility in wanting this to really succeed over here and being a big part in its success over here. So, it's cool to come see, but we got a lot of work to do to, keep people coming to the Foundry. So we're just on it, foot on the gas all the time, trying to push over here.
You've always been vocal during COVID, talking about the issues, using your platform to address things as someone that is respected in the industry. What are some things that you guys are doing right now to get people in?
I think our biggest approach is hospitality, and really like doubling down on hospitality and the way that we take care of our employees, because I think happy employees end up with happy guests, and then doubling down on taking care of our guests. We know it's just a tough time for everybody right now, right? Everything's so expensive. Restaurants are expensive. Gas is expensive. Groceries are expensive. Your rent's expensive. And it's on the flip side of that, it's really expensive to run restaurants. It's never been more expensive to run a restaurant. And so we're always conscious and always trying to balance. What our costs are, how much we can charge people. I think the thing that we always remind ourselves is that this world's kind of in a constant flux, right? And we've been through the 2008 financial crisis as a company. We've been through COVID as a company, and I think we're always reminding ourselves that sometimes are great times, sometimes are lower times, and just being creative to kind of push through those and meet people where they're at. Whether it's with this place, you have kind of two ways you can do expat, right? Upstairs with sandwiches and stuff like that, all kind of fast casual, or you can sit down with a server downstairs and do the full barbecue plates and everything like that. But it's you can kind of get yourself in the two different price points. And Piranha, which we just opened into Pear, again, it's like our way of saying, hey, we're gonna use really quality ingredients. We're gonna try to serve something a step above where it is in the world of fast casual, but it's an affordable option, where your entrees are like $11, as opposed to 30 or something. Yeah, I think they go from $12 to $14. We have different levels to offer everybody. You can come drink up here, hanging out on a rooftop, having fun, listening to music. You drinking out of a plastic cup, or you can go downstairs to the basement and have a way more expensive but luxurious experience at none of the above, and kind of be pampered a little bit. So, we like to have all those different levels for people.
What does the future have in store for you? I mean, you've opened up 3 concepts this year. You're still the chief food officer.
Flavor officer.
Chief flavor officer.
Get it right.
I was thinking of ways. I was like, should I just call him the CFO?
Flavor Town.
Some people could be listening to this and be like, oh wow, he's a chief financial. Yeah. What does the future have in store for you? Maybe near 3 to 5, and then.
Well, we just 3 days ago, as we're filming this, opened Expat, which is 16,000 square foot barbecue restaurant. So, this is going to occupy a lot of our time. Still working with City SC and starting to already look at what next year looks like at the stadium. And Piranha, which just opened 6 weeks ago, which is just insane. But we are looking for other locations currently for that, to try to keep pushing on that, because that will be a multi-unit operation. So, we're busy. And we're busy operating and taking care of all the ones.
The other.
Just remodeled Pastaria. I don't know if you've gone over to peek at that recently.
I haven't.
It looks amazing. Oh, more food. So you got the Vietnamese spiced pork, and I have the brisket over here. What's your jam?
Let me try this one. I think I've had quite a bit of brisket today, so woo, I'm taking a nap after this.
Cholesterol is gonna be high. I think that's your good cholesterol though, right?
Purposeful cholesterol. It's good food, so it's not like, you have something that's unhealthy, or it's like, when you're in your early 20s, you go out, you get drunk off like Aristocrat, and you're like, hey, I got drunk, but then you hate yourself because it was not quality.
I don't even know what Aristocrat is.
December of 2023, I saw you on the carpet of Nelly's black and white ball. It's all these celebrities, and obviously we have Gerard, the celebrity as well. And so we talked a little bit about music, and then, since then, we haven't really talked about music. So what's some of your favorite artists to listen to, whether you're driving, flying, or in the kitchen?
So it kind of depends on the mood, and I'm all over the place with music, Growing up, I listened to like 90s hip hop, and like kind of specifically like East Coast 90s hip hop. So like Nas, Mobb Deep, Wu-Tang Clan, Big L. But I also at the same time listened to East Coast hardcore music. So like kind of super heavy punk rock. It was like really big in Washington, D.C. So those were kind of like my two growing up genres. I'm old, I'm 45, I'm softened up, I have two daughters. So I'll listen to some other stuff. I listen to the Avett Brothers a lot. I'm a big fan of Joe Kwan, their cellist, who's also like big time foodie. I love Maggie Rose, and I spent some time in Nashville, so I get some of that type of music mixed in there, and I think that rounds me out a little bit. And now, my brother growing up was the biggest Grateful Dead fan, and I hated them. Except he took me to a Grateful Dead show while Jerry Garcia was still alive, and it was still to this day probably one of the best concerts I've ever been to. And now nostalgically, even though I hated it then, kind of, nostalgically, I know all the words just from being around it, and I every now and then I'll catch myself listening to some Grateful Dead and relaxing.
Sounds like you go with the vibe of the day.
Yeah.
What are you up to?
It's comical amount of food. This is the cowboy burger I was telling you about though. That has the fried kimchi on it, and kind of the gochugaru barbecue sauce on it. You gotta at least taste that one.
I gotta take a bite of it. And that is officially the most food I've ever had on the podcast.
It's gonna be sponsored by True Fusion, which is also here at the Foundry. So you can come eat at Expat and then go for a Pilates class downstairs.
Foodie Friday, toughest question. 3 or 4 of your favorite spots to eat in St. Louis?
So downstairs, right here in City Foundry, one of my all-time favorite restaurants is Chez Ali. Ali is the man, and his food is incredible. Get his oxtails specific. They have the oxtails at Chez Ali, knockout. All right, so we got one, Chez Ali. Little Fox. Yep. Little Fox, so consistent, so delicious. It somehow balances, being creative, but also very comforting at the same time, which I think is a near impossible task. Sometimes things are adventurous and fun and interesting, and sometimes things are just like comforting, but rarely do they get to like merge in such a special way like that. So Little Fox is incredible. I live in the middle of the woods. During COVID, I needed to be away from everybody, and I moved into the middle of the woods. But not far from me were two unsuspecting restaurants. I did not expect to find some of my favorite restaurants out in the country. Yep. And one of them is Malinche, which is kind of like modern Mexican and like an insane cocktail program. And then the other is a place called La Tiendita, which is about 2 blocks away from Malinche. And La Tiendita is just a taco joint. They actually just expanded to add a bar on and a bigger dining room. It used to just be like a 6-person counter and 2 4-tops. So now there's actually some more seating. But I think that La Tiendita has some of the best tacos in the country. Okay. Not in St. Louis, in the country. Like, their tortillas, I think, are so much better than anything that we've got in town. Come at me all you want for that one, but La Tiendita, they rule the taco world.
I'll definitely give them a try. I went to a place called Lola 55 in San Diego. They won 4 straight Michelin stars. So I'm curious. I want to go there, because it's probably going to be a lot better.
Get the tongue tacos.
Let's do words of wisdom. So it could be someone that aspires to do what you're doing, or they could be going through a tough time. If you had to leave listeners some words of wisdom, what would they be?
I'm stealing Jerry Seinfeld, actually, because I've been saying it, because, this has not been my easiest year personally. So I've been saying it to my kids too, who have been having a bit of a tough time, is this too shall pass, right? And I liked the way that Jerry Seinfeld put it, because he said, when things are really good and you're on top of the world, it's important to remember that this too shall pass. Yep. And when you're at your lowest, it's important to remember that this too shall pass. One foot in front of the other. That's the only way I get it done every day. Is some days you just have to get up and say, start moving, start doing your work, and get to it.
Awesome, man. This is long overdue. I really appreciate your time.
Hey, man. Thank you.
Thank you.